Hello there and welcome to another Döhle Yacht Coffee Break. My name is Ben Geary, I'm the Fleet Statutory Manager here at Döhle Yachts, and today I'm lucky enough to join by Julian Smith, a good friend of mine who's the Principal Surveyor at Cayman Islands. What we wanted to do today is just take a moment to talk about the new Corrigenda No.2, which was released on the 31st of December, for those that don't know. So Julian, one, thank you very much for joining us, and I suppose we're just going to jump straight into it and say, well, why has the second Corrigenda come about, and also more importantly probably for people listening, when does it come into force?
Sure, no, thanks Ben. I mean, first and foremost, a very good day, good afternoon to everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for this afternoon's coffee break. Just to answer your question, Ben, well, it's come about as a result of the provision of stakeholder feedback since the code entered into force at the beginning of 2019. From our side within the Red Ensign Group, we're in constant dialogue with designers, with shipyards, aviation inspection bodies, consultants, owners, representatives, management companies. And of course, industry feedback is something that we in the Red Ensign Group consider highly valuable and take very, very seriously. And it's this feedback really that is consolidated, reviewed, and we discuss it within the Red Ensign Group, both via correspondence group and during the annual Yacht Surveyors meetings. And it's that subsequently led to the drafting and publishing of this Corrigenda to the code. The Corrigenda itself, that was published on the 31st of December, following its endorsement at last year's Red Ensign Group Technical Forum, and it enters into force, which affects keels laid as of 1st of June this year.
Okay, fantastic. And I suppose another question from my point of view is, what do you as Cayman or maybe the REG Group think are the major ticket items that have come into the new Corrigenda?
Well, the primary purpose of the Corrigenda is to provide additional clarification for the sake of ensuring that the requirements of the code are implemented in a technically consistent manner. And working on that technical consistency is something that we do on a continuous basis, and again, it's something we take very seriously. So the majority of the amendments to the text are actually based on experience gained to date in some key areas where it's become evident that the existing text is open to interpretation. Okay. This in turn generates a great deal of discussion and is something which we really want to avoid going forwards, and as such we've considered certain areas of the code need amending in order to provide this important clarification and reduce some of the frustration which we're currently seeing. Just to briefly touch upon the existing ship side of things, the Corrigenda now provides additional clarification with respect to exactly how the regulations are applied to conversions, to alterations and modifications, which is of course a major consideration during any refit process. In terms of the new builds, we've now harmonised Part A requirements for atriums with the existing requirements for passenger yachts, which requires atriums in large yachts to now be enclosed by A-class divisions. This for the purpose of maintaining deck-to-deck integrity in the event of a fire, and also for the provision of a smoke extraction system to evade with visibility and mitigate risks associated with smoke inhalation during escape and search and rescue related matters. We've also harmonised minimum freeboard requirements for whole shell openings, so both Part A and Part B yachts now require at least 600 millimetres.
Okay, fantastic. And I think it's a good time to talk about, like, you know, how much of the industry's been involved. I mean, I've come from a class side, so have you, and it's been a constant criticism, I suppose, or question about how much of the industry has actually been inputted into the development of these codes. And you know, you and I have been on the working groups in our last life, and obviously you're now involved in the development. Could you, I mean, how many different kinds of parts of the industry, or how many people have actually been involved in the development of this Corrigenda, if not the actual REG code itself?
Well, I suppose the short answer is a great deal, really. The industry has and continues to be very generous with respect to investing its time in the development of the yacht codes, and that's something that we as the Red Ensign Group are highly appreciative of. Not only do we leave the door permanently open for the receipt of feedback, which is always welcomed and regularly received, we also consult extensively with industry, which in this case was over a 3-month period prior to its publication.
Awesome. And I suppose Another question that we'll get asked a lot is there a plan from the Red Ensign Group to kind of release a Corrigenda every year, or how often are we going to see these come about?
Yeah, good question. I know certainly in the lead up to releasing the code, there was a great deal of talk actually about hoping not to amend the code any more frequently than what we needed to do in line with SOLAS 4 yearly amendment cycles. I think first and foremost I would like to highlight that there is no intention to routinely change regulations, certainly not for the sake of it. We do fully understand and appreciate the impact that such changes have on the industry as a whole. That said, we do of course need to ensure that we continue listening to industry to provide additional clarification in any areas where regular discussion remains, to ensure that the code is agile enough to accommodate emerging and rapidly changing technologies, which of course are now very much commonplace in our industry. As such, whilst ideally we would like to keep any further amendments harmonised with the SOLAS 4 yearly amendment cycles, we're acutely aware that this is likely to prove inadequate as far as future developments with yacht design and construction trends are concerned. And on that basis, future amendments and updates are likely to be needed more frequently. It's very difficult at this moment in time to say exactly when the next Corrigenda is likely to be published. Again, it will be based on the amount of stakeholder feedback that we receive post-release of Corrigenda number 2, where, if and when key areas are identified that do require either amendment or modification or additional clarification, then we will of course act to ensure that those are dealt with at the appropriate time.
And I assume, as it has been throughout the development of the REG codes, that even if there is another Corrigenda, let's say, that needs to come about, the industry will always be asked to participate and be part of that development process.
Absolutely, yes, yeah, very much so. And sadly, 2020, we were unable to reconvene any of the previous industry working groups that look at Part A, we look at Part B, and obviously heli-decks and other specialist areas of the code due to the current pandemic. Going forwards, once we've been able to once we've been able to implement everything properly and gain some more experience of the current regulatory requirements, then if necessary we will of course seek to reconvene the industry working groups and look for additional stakeholder feedback.
Fantastic. Obviously the REG codes in various forms, whether it's the Large Yacht Code, PYC, or now the REG code itself, has been around for a while. How do you guys see that code sitting alongside, let's say, Malta, who've just released a code kind of towards the end of last year, Marshall Islands, who are currently developing their codes? How do you feel this sits with those?
Well, I think what really sets the REG code apart from other standards is its history. And what we can offer in terms of the code based on long-established regulations that have been shaped by both regulators and industry stakeholders over the last 20 years. Looking back to the sort of initial development of where we are with what we all know and love as the so-called Mega Yacht Code, LY1, that was now introduced in 1998. I think further to that, LY2 came into effect in September 2004, and LY3 was launched in 2012 at the Monaco Yacht Show, of course. Further to that, what would have been LY4 and is now Part A of the REG Yacht Code entered into first on the 1st of January 2019, and from what we've seen has had a very positive response and uptake from industry. For passenger yachts, of course, the first edition of the PYC was published over 10 years ago now, November 2010, and that was updated annually, with the 6th edition having been published in 2016. So really, I think it's the rich history of the codes and the code's pace and ability to keep up with rapidly changing trends in yacht design and construction, rapidly emerging technology, rapid pacing change of technology that's really kept us at the forefront of yacht regulation over the last 20 years.
Fantastic. I suppose my last question really is, obviously you kind of highlighted it earlier, that the world has been in a massive change over the last year with the pandemic. And it's had a massive effect on all kinds of industries, and obviously we see it from one side, other people see it from others. I mean, how do you as a flag, how do you feel the yacht industry is coping, and how do you think it's set out for the near future?
Yeah, a good question actually. I suppose short answer again would be, from what we've seen very well in the face of what we all know is a set of exceptionally challenging circumstances. I'm pleased to report our new build order book is strong. Projects are increasingly getting larger and more complex. The number of new queries that we've dealt with in recent months is also very encouraging for the future. I think from an in-service perspective, the pandemic, of course, has had a significant impact on operations globally. But what we are seeing at present is a clear desire from the industry to provide a COVID-safe environment on board, and a strong response in the face of outbreaks, together with a clear desire to continue as best possible under the circumstances.
Julian, thank you very much for your time. I know that you are a very busy chap, but I think it's really useful to have this discussion, and also just to make people aware that this Corrigenda is now out for people to download and have a look at and absorb before it comes into force later on this year. So Julian, thank you very much for your time today. And if any of you want any further information, Julian's contact details or mine will be at the end of this, and please get in touch. Thanks very much.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and stay safe. Thank you. Bye-bye.